Sarah Martinez wiped her hands on her apron as she heard the distant rumble of thunder rolling across the Montana sky. The storm had been building all afternoon, dark clouds gathering like bruises against the horizon. She glanced through the kitchen window of her small farmhouse, watching the wheat field sway in the restless wind. At 34, Sarah had grown accustomed to the solitude of rural life. Her husband David had died in a farming accident 3 years ago, leaving her to manage the 100-acre property alone. Most days, the silence felt like an old friend, but tonight it seemed heavy with anticipation. Lightning split the sky, followed by a crack of thunder that rattled the windows. Sarah was about to close the curtains when she saw something impossible. A streak of brilliant blue light tore through the storm clouds, far too bright and sustained to be lightning. The object, whatever it was, seemed to be falling in a controlled descent toward the far pasture. Without hesitation, Sarah grabbed her raincoat and the powerful flashlight David had insisted on keeping by the door. She pulled on her boots and stepped into the storm, rain immediately soaking through her jacket. The wind whipped her dark hair across her face as she trudged through the muddy field, following the fading glow she had seen. 20 minutes later, she found it. A craft, no larger than a pickup truck, had carved a shallow furrow in the soft earth. Its surface was smooth and metallic, but unlike any metal she had ever seen. It seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an almost liquid appearance in her flashlight beam. Steam rose from its surface where the rain touched it. Sarah approached cautiously, her heart hammering against her ribs. A section of the craft's side had cracked open, revealing a soft blue glow from within. Through the opening, she could see movement. "Hello," she called out over the storm. "Is anyone in there? Are you hurt?" A sound emerged from the craft, unlike anything she had ever heard. It was melodic, almost musical, but carried an unmistakable note of distress. Sarah moved closer, shining her light through the opening. Inside, curled in what appeared to be some kind of cushioned seat, was a being about the size of a 7-year-old child. Its skin had a soft, opalescent quality that shifted between pale blue and silver in her flashlight beam. Large, dark eyes dominated a face that was both alien and, somehow achingly familiar. The being's limbs were slender, ending in hands with 6 delicate fingers. What struck Sarah most profoundly was not the creature's obvious alien nature, but the way it looked at her. Those enormous eyes held an expression she recognized from every lost child she had ever encountered. Fear, hope, and desperate need all rolled into one heartbreaking gaze. The being made the musical sound again, this time softer, more questioning. One of its 6-fingered hands reached toward her tentatively. "Oh, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, her maternal instincts overriding any fear or shock. "You're just a baby, aren't you?" Without another thought, she reached into the craft. The being didn't pull away as her hands gently lifted it from the cushioned seat. It was surprisingly light, weighing no more than a human child of similar size. Its skin felt warm and incredibly soft, with a texture like fine silk. As soon as Sarah lifted the creature, it made a sound that was unmistakably a sob. Small arms wrapped around her neck, clinging with desperate strength. The being's body shook with what could only be crying, though no tears fell from those dark eyes. "Shoo, it's okay," Sarah murmured, automatically falling into the soothing voice she had once used with David when he had nightmares as a boy. She had always wanted children of her own, though it had never happened. "You're safe now. I've got you." She wrapped her raincoat around the small form and began the trek back to the farmhouse, one arm supporting the alien child while the other held the flashlight. The being had stopped shaking but continued to cling to her, occasionally making soft, musical sounds that seemed almost like attempts at communication. By the time they reached the house, both of them were thoroughly soaked despite the raincoat. Sarah kicked off her muddy boots at the door and carried the alien child into the warm kitchen. The overhead lights revealed details she hadn't been able to see in the storm. The being's opalescent skin was even more beautiful in proper lighting, shifting through subtle shades of blue, silver, and pale lavender. Its hair, if it could be called that, appeared to be composed of something like fine, silvery fiber that moved independently, almost like it was underwater. The child wore what looked like a simple, form-fitting garment made of the same material as its hair. Sarah gently set the alien child on her kitchen counter, keeping one hand supportively on its back. "Let me get you something warm and dry," she said, though she doubted it understood her words. The tone seemed to comfort it, however, as those large eyes tracked her every movement. She retrieved one of David's old t-shirts from the laundry room and a soft towel from the bathroom. When she returned to the kitchen, she found the alien child examining her coffee maker with obvious curiosity, running delicate fingers over the smooth surfaces. "That's just a machine for making hot drinks," Sarah explained gently. "Here, let's get you out of those wet clothes." The being allowed her to remove the strange garment, revealing that its opalescent skin covered its entire body. Sarah carefully dried it with the towel, noting that its skin seemed to repel water naturally, making the process easier than expected. The oversized t-shirt hung like a dress on the small frame, but it was warm and dry. The alien child made a musical sound that definitely seemed like a question, touching the fabric of the shirt with obvious wonder. "It's cotton," Sarah said. "A plant fiber we weave into cloth. Very different from what you're used to, I imagine." She moved to the refrigerator, considering what an alien being might be able to eat. The child watched with fascination as she opened the door, the interior light causing its eyes to widen with what looked like delight. "Are you hungry?" Sarah asked, pointing to various items. "I have milk, fruit, vegetables." The alien child made an excited sound when she held up a red apple, reaching for it with both hands. Sarah smiled and handed it over, watching as delicate fingers explored the fruit's surface before the being took a tentative bite. The reaction was immediate and joyful. The alien child's entire body seemed to glow slightly brighter as it consumed the apple with obvious pleasure, making happy musical sounds between bites. "Well, that's a good sign," Sarah said with relief. "If you can eat our food, we should be able to figure out how to take care of you." As if understanding her words, the alien child looked up at her and made a series of melodic sounds that definitely seemed like an attempt at speech. When Sarah didn't respond with the same musical language, the being pointed at itself and made a short, specific sound repeatedly. "Is that your name?" Sarah asked. The sound was too complex for her to reproduce accurately, but she tried her best. The alien child's reaction was immediate, clapping its hands together and nodding enthusiastically. "I'm Sarah," she said, pointing to herself. "Sarah." The being attempted to repeat her name, producing something that sounded like a musical interpretation of the syllables. It was beautiful in its own way, though completely unlike human speech. Sarah found herself smiling for the first time in months. "Close enough, sweetheart." The alien child finished the apple and looked around the kitchen with obvious curiosity and wonder. Everything seemed new and fascinating to it, the electric lights, the smooth surfaces of the appliances, even the wooden grain of the cabinets. It was clearly intelligent, examining objects with scientific interest rather than simple animal curiosity. "You're lost, aren't you?" Sarah said softly, settling into a chair beside the counter where the being sat. "That ship of yours, it wasn't supposed to land here." The alien child's expression grew sad, and it made a series of low, mournful sounds. It pointed toward the window, then up at the ceiling, then made a gesture that somehow conveyed vast distance. "You're far from home," Sarah interpreted. The being nodded, large eyes beginning to show that heartbreaking expression again. Sarah felt her chest tighten with sympathy. She had spent 3 years learning to live with loss, but she couldn't imagine being completely severed from everything familiar at such a young age. "Well," she said, reaching out to gently stroke the silvery hair-like fibers on the being's head, "you're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together." The alien child leaned into her touch, making a sound that was unmistakably a purr of contentment. For the first time since the crash, it seemed to relax completely. As the storm continued to rage outside, Sarah realized that her quiet, solitary life had just changed forever. Tomorrow would bring questions she couldn't answer and challenges she couldn't imagine. But tonight, she had a lost child who needed care and comfort, and those were things she understood completely. The alien being curled up in her lap, small hands clutching the oversized t-shirt as it drifted off to sleep. Sarah held it carefully, marveling at how natural it felt despite the extraordinary circumstances. She had always believed that love was universal, but she had never expected to prove it quite so literally. Sarah woke to the gentle pressure of small hands touching her face. She opened her eyes to find the alien child sitting beside her on the couch where she had fallen asleep, studying her features with scientific curiosity. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows, and the storm had passed, leaving the world outside fresh and clean. "Good morning, little one," Sarah said softly, sitting up carefully. The being had somehow managed to climb down from her lap without waking her, though it had stayed close. The alien child made its musical greeting sound and pointed toward the kitchen, then patted its stomach in a gesture that needed no translation. "Hungry again? Let's see what we can find." In the kitchen, Sarah discovered that her unusual guest was fascinated by the process of food preparation. It watched intently as she cracked eggs into a pan, its large eyes tracking every movement. When she offered to let it help, the being approached the stove with careful interest. The alien child's coordination was remarkable. Its six-fingered hands moved with precision as Sarah guided it through stirring the eggs, and it seemed to understand the concept of cooking almost intuitively. When the eggs were done, it made excited musical sounds and clapped its hands together. "You're a quick learner," Sarah observed, dividing the scrambled eggs between two plates. The being ate with obvious enjoyment, using its fingers to pick up small portions with surprising delicacy. After breakfast, Sarah showed her guest around the farmhouse. The alien child was endlessly curious about everything: light switches, doorknobs, the texture of carpet versus hardwood floors. It seemed particularly fascinated by photographs, spending long minutes studying pictures of Sarah and David from their early marriage. When they came to David's old workshop, the being's interest intensified dramatically. Tools and mechanical devices captured its attention completely. It examined a screwdriver with the same focused intensity a human engineer might show toward an alien artifact. David was good with his hands, Sarah explained, watching his delicate alien fingers trace the edge of a workbench. He could fix anything that broke, build whatever we needed. The alien child picked up a small wrench and held it experimentally, as if testing its weight and balance. Then, it did something extraordinary. It began to disassemble a broken radio that had been sitting on the bench for months, its movements quick and precise. "Wait, what are you?" Sarah began, but stopped as she realized what she was watching. The being wasn't randomly taking the radio apart. It was working with clear purpose and understanding, identifying each component and examining it carefully before setting it aside. Within minutes, the alien child had the radio completely dismantled, its parts arranged in neat, organized rows. It made a questioning musical sound and pointed at a small component that was clearly damaged. "That's the problem, isn't it?" Sarah said in amazement. "You can see what's wrong." The being nodded enthusiastically, then looked around the workshop until it spotted David's collection of spare electronic parts. With Sarah's permission, it began searching through the boxes until it found a suitable replacement component. Reassembling the radio took longer than taking it apart, but the alien child worked with patient concentration. Its 6 fingers gave it advantages in handling small parts that Sarah was only beginning to appreciate. When it finally connected the last wire and gestured for her to turn it on, the radio crackled to life with clear reception. "That's incredible," Sarah breathed. "You fixed it better than it was before." The alien child made happy musical sounds and hugged Sarah around the waist, clearly pleased with both its accomplishment and her approval. Over the following days, a routine developed between them. The being, whom Sarah had started calling Harmony because of its musical speech, proved to be remarkably adaptable. It learned to help with simple household tasks, displaying an intuitive understanding of cause and effect that sometimes startled Sarah with its sophistication. Harmony seemed to have an innate understanding of plants and growing things. When Sarah showed it the vegetable garden behind the house, the alien child immediately gravitated toward the struggling tomato plants. It knelt in the soil and placed its hands gently on the base of each plant, making soft, almost inaudible musical sounds. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" Sarah asked, but the answer became apparent over the next few hours. The tomato plants began to visibly perk up, their leaves growing greener and fuller than they had been all season. "How did you do that?" Sarah wondered aloud. Harmony just smiled, an expression that looked surprisingly human despite the alien features, and moved on to the next row of vegetables. Communication between them evolved rapidly. While they couldn't share complex verbal language, they developed a system of gestures, facial expressions, and simple sounds that allowed for surprisingly detailed exchanges. Harmony was clearly intelligent enough to understand much of what Sarah said, even if it couldn't respond in kind. The alien child's emotional needs were remarkably similar to those of any young being. It sought comfort when frightened, approval when successful, and constant reassurance that it was safe and wanted. Sarah found herself falling into the role of caregiver as naturally as breathing. But Harmony gave back as much as it received. Its presence filled the empty spaces in Sarah's life that she hadn't fully realized existed. The farmhouse felt alive again, filled with musical sounds and the energy of curiosity and discovery. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Harmony made a series of melodic sounds that seemed different from its usual communication attempts. There was something formal about it, almost ritualistic. "Are you trying to tell me something important?" Sarah asked. Harmony nodded seriously, then stood and walked to the edge of the porch. It looked up at the darkening sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear, and made the musical sounds again. This time, Sarah caught an unmistakable note of longing. "You miss your family," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. The alien child returned to her side and made a soft sound of agreement, leaning against her shoulder. But then, it looked up at Sarah and made another series of sounds, pointing back and forth between them. The meaning was clear, even without shared language. "You consider me family now too," Sarah interpreted, feeling her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. Harmony nodded and wrapped its small arms around her in a fierce hug. At that moment, something shifted in Sarah's understanding of their relationship. This wasn't just about providing temporary shelter for a lost being. They had genuinely bonded, forming something that transcended species and even the vast distances between worlds. That night, as Sarah tucked Harmony into the small bed they had made in the spare room, the alien child made a request that broke her heart with its simple innocence. It patted the pillow beside it and made questioning sounds, clearly asking Sarah to stay. "You want me to sleep here with you tonight?" Sarah asked. Harmony nodded eagerly, and Sarah couldn't bring herself to refuse. She lay down beside the small form, feeling Harmony curl up against her side with complete trust. "Sarah," the alien child said suddenly, the word recognizable despite the musical quality of its voice. "Yes, sweetheart?" Harmony was quiet for a long moment, and, when it spoke again, the words were halting but unmistakable. "Can I stay here with you?" Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It was the first time Harmony had spoken in anything approaching human language, and the effort it must have taken was obvious in the careful pronunciation of each syllable. "Oh, little one," Sarah whispered, pulling Harmony closer. "Of course you can stay. For as long as you want. This is your home now." Harmony made a sound that was definitely a sob of relief and happiness combined. In that moment, Sarah realized that the question could have gone both ways. The alien child had asked if it could stay with her, but she could just as easily have asked if she could stay in this new life they were building together. The answer, she knew, would always be yes. As Harmony drifted off to sleep in her arms, Sarah stared out the window at the stars and wondered about the family somewhere among them who was mourning a lost child. She hoped they would somehow know that their little one was safe, loved, and cherished. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and discoveries. There would be questions about Harmony's crashed ship, about whether others might come looking, about what the future held for both of them. But, tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, they were simply a family, two beings from different worlds who had found in each other exactly what they needed to heal the empty spaces in their hearts. 3 months after the crash, Sarah's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. The farmhouse that had once echoed with loneliness now rang with Harmony's musical laughter and the sounds of constant discovery. The alien child had not only adapted to human life but had enhanced it in remarkable ways. The garden flourished under Harmony's care, producing vegetables larger and more vibrant than anything Sarah had grown before. The alien child's touch seemed to accelerate growth and health in all living things, from the struggling apple tree by the barn to the old barn cat who had started following Harmony around like a devoted pet. More importantly, Harmony had continued to develop its grasp of human language. While its speech retained the melodic quality of its natural communication, it could now hold simple conversations, ask questions, and express complex emotions with increasing clarity. "Sarah," Harmony said one morning as they worked together in the kitchen, "why do humans cook food instead of eating it fresh?" "Heat changes the food," Sarah explained, appreciating how the alien child's questions often made her think about things she had always taken for granted. "Sometimes it makes nutrients easier for our bodies to use, sometimes it just makes things taste better." Harmony nodded thoughtfully, considering this information with the serious attention it gave to all new concepts. "My people eat energy from light, like plants. But human food is wonderful." These conversations had become precious to Sarah. Harmony's perspective on human customs and behaviors often revealed beauty and meaning in ordinary things that she had never noticed before. The alien child found wonder in everything from the way soap bubbles reflected light to the complex relationships between different plants in the garden. But, on this particular morning, their peaceful routine was about to be shattered. Sarah was hanging laundry on the line behind the house when she heard Harmony make a sound unlike any it had produced before, a high, pure note that seemed to carry across the entire valley. She looked up to see the alien child standing rigid in the garden, its opalescent skin glowing more brightly than usual, its head tilted toward the sky. "Harmony? What's wrong, sweetheart?" The alien child turned to her with an expression of mixed joy and anguish. "They come," it said simply. "My people. They found me." Sarah's heart seemed to stop. She followed Harmony's gaze upward and saw it, a ship much larger than the crashed vessel, descending from the morning clouds with the same controlled grace she remembered from that stormy night 3 months ago. The ship settled in the far pasture near the crash site, and 3 figures emerged. Even at a distance, Sarah could see they were the same species as Harmony but clearly adult, taller, more graceful, with the same opalescent skin and silvery hair like fibers. Harmony ran toward them, and Sarah followed at a slower pace, her mind racing with emotions she couldn't untangle. Relief that Harmony would be reunited with its own kind. Terror that she was about to lose the being who had become the center of her world. Confusion about what this moment would mean for both of them. The reunion between Harmony and the adult aliens was both beautiful and heartbreaking to witness. The 3 adults surrounded the child, making complex musical sounds that were clearly expressions of joy and relief. Their skin glowed brighter as they touched Harmony, and the child responded with similar luminescence. But, even as it was embraced by its own people, Harmony kept looking back toward Sarah with an expression that needed no translation. One of the adults approached Sarah, moving with fluid grace. When it spoke, its command of human language was far superior to Harmony's, though it retained the same musical quality. "Human Sarah," it said, its voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am called something like resonance in your language. I am the parent guide of the child you call Harmony." "You're its mother," Sarah said, though she wasn't sure if the concept translated directly. "Something similar, yes. We have come to express our deep gratitude for your care of our young one. The ship that carries your world's name for water has told us much of what happened." Sarah looked confused until she realized it was referring to the crashed vessel. "The ship can communicate? All our technology is alive, in your sense. When we could not locate the child, the ship sang to us of the storm, the crash, and, most importantly, of you." Resonance paused, studying Sarah with large, dark eyes. "It told us how you took our young one from the wreckage without fear, how you provided warmth and food and something it describes as soft care." "I did what anyone would do," Sarah said quietly. "No," Resonance replied with gentle firmness. "The ship has observed your species through your communication signals. We know that many humans would have reacted with fear or aggression towards something so different. You chose to see a child in need rather than an alien threat. This is not common, even among the most advanced species we have encountered." Harmony had moved to stand between Sarah and Resonance, taking Sarah's hand in its 6-fingered grasp. The alien child looked up at its parent guide and spoke in their musical language, the conversation rapid and intense. "The child speaks of you with great affection," Resonance translated when they had finished. It says you are its Earth parent guide and that this place has become nest home. These are concepts of deep significance in our culture. Sarah knelt beside Harmony, her heart breaking. I know you have to go home with your family, sweetheart. I understand. But Harmony shook its head vigorously, speaking rapidly to both Sarah and Resonance. The adult alien listened with growing surprise, occasionally making questioning sounds. What is it saying? Sarah asked. Resonance was quiet for a long moment before responding. The child has made a request that is unprecedented in our species. It asks to remain here, with you, as part of a dual family structure. It wishes to belong to both worlds. Is that possible? Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. Our young normally remain with their birth cluster until they reach what you might call adolescence, Resonance explained. But Harmony's experience here has been transformative in ways we did not anticipate. The ship shows us that the child's abilities have grown tremendously under your care. Its understanding of biological systems, its mechanical aptitude, its emotional development, all have accelerated beyond normal parameters. The second adult alien, who had been examining the crashed ship, approached and spoke to Resonance in their musical language. My colleagues confirm what the ship has told us, Resonance continued. The child's growth here has been extraordinary. But, more than that, you have given it something we did not know it lacked. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Our species is highly communal. We learn through shared consciousness and emotional resonance. But Harmony has learned something different from you, what you might call individual nurturing. The focused care of a single dedicated parent guide has unlocked potential we did not know existed. Harmony tugged on Sarah's hand and spoke carefully in human words. I want to stay with you, but I want my other family too. Can we share? Resonance spoke with the other adults for several minutes, their conversation growing increasingly animated. Finally, they seemed to reach a consensus. We have decided, Resonance announced, to propose something that has never been tried. We would establish what you might call an embassy here, a permanent presence to facilitate ongoing contact between our species. Harmony would remain with you as our first cultural exchange participant, but would maintain connections to our people. Sarah felt dizzy with the magnitude of what was being offered. You would do that? Stay near Earth just so Harmony could live with both families? The child's development under your care suggests that this arrangement could benefit both our species immeasurably, Resonance explained. Our people could learn from human approaches to individual development, while your people could benefit from our understanding of collective consciousness and biological harmony. Harmony would be our bridge between worlds. What do you want, little one? Sarah asked, looking into Harmony's large, earnest eyes. Really and truly? Harmony was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking carefully about its words. When it spoke, its voice was soft but certain. I want to be your child and their child. I want to live here and help things grow and fix broken machines and learn about humans. But I want to visit my star family too and share what I learn. Is that okay? Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she pulled Harmony into a tight hug. That sounds perfect, sweetheart. Absolutely perfect. As the adults worked out the details of their unprecedented arrangement, Sarah marveled at how much her life had changed. She had started as a lonely widow caring for a lost alien child. Now she was becoming something entirely new, Earth's first interspecies parent, helping to raise a child who would bridge two worlds. That evening, as the alien ship established its permanent base in the far field, Sarah sat on her porch with Harmony curled in her lap. The alien child was chattering excitedly about all the things it wanted to show its star family about Earth life, and all the things it wanted to learn about its birth culture. Sarah, Harmony said suddenly, looking up at her with serious eyes. When I first crashed here, I was lost and scared and alone. You made me not alone anymore. You did the same for me, sweetheart, Sarah replied honestly. I was alone too, before you came. But now we're a family that reaches to the stars, Harmony said with satisfaction. The best kind of family, the kind you choose. As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, Sarah understood that this was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring representatives from both species, scientists and diplomats, and probably a fair amount of chaos. There would be protocols to establish, treaties to negotiate, and 1,000 details to work out. But tonight, she was simply a mother holding her child, watching the stars and planning for a future none of them could have imagined. In the end, that was perhaps the most human thing of all, the ability to build family from love rather than biology, to create home from choice rather than circumstance. The HFY moment wasn't in humanity's technology or warfare or conquest. It was in something much simpler and infinitely more powerful, the capacity to love unconditionally, to see family in the alien and strange, and to choose connection over fear. In her lap, Harmony hummed softly, a lullaby that somehow combined the musical language of its birth species with the rhythm of human heartbeats. It was the perfect song for a child of two worlds, cradled by a mother whose love knew no boundaries.